Good to have you with us on this Friday edition as we roll into Labor Day weekend. You know, Labor Day weekend is really honoring those who have been in the middle class and the lower middle class income bracket throughout their entire career. If it were not for laborers, we wouldn't be where we are as a country right now. That, of course, is under threat. It has been the theme of Bernie Sanders' campaign since day one, a diminishing middle class. And the candidate, the independent senator from Vermont, joins us. We'll get right to it on this Friday. Senator, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
Senator, if there's one thing about your campaign that is an absolute, nowhere in any poll have you gone backwards. What is happening at this hour with your campaign as you go into Labor Day weekend? How crucial do you think Labor Day weekend is? Because traditionally in American politics, this is the big one.
No, that's right. Look, Ed, you and I have talked very often. And if I had told you 4 months ago, when I began this campaign, just 4 months ago, that some polls would have us in the lead in New Hampshire, they would have us closing the gap very significantly in Iowa, where I am right now, moving up all over the country, I think we would both have been very, very surprised. So I think there is no question that the huge turnouts that we're seeing in Iowa and New Hampshire, all across this country, and the enthusiasm that our campaign is generating is surprising a whole lot of people. So I am feeling very good. Very good.
You've got to feel great, Senator. The bottom line here is that you haven't changed your message at all. You've come up with nothing startling new. It's the same Bernie Sanders that was on my cable show and other cable shows for the last how many years, saying the same things and pounding on these issues.
Right.
And so did you have your finger on the pulse of the people all along? How do you read it?
Well, I'll tell you something, Ed. That's a very good question. And my answer is that I believe that the issues that you have talked about, that I have talked about, are the issues that will resonate with the American people. And that is, how does it happen that despite a huge increase in technology and productivity, the middle class continues to disappear? How does it happen that almost all of the new income and wealth being generated goes to the top 1%? How does it happen that our trade policy continues to cost us millions of decent-paying jobs? How does it happen that we're the only major country on earth without a health care program guaranteeing health care to all people? And you're right. These are issues that I have been talking about for a long time. But what I will tell you, Ed, what has surprised me is the speed at which these ideas are now getting through to the American people and the kind of response that we're getting. So, yes, I thought these ideas were good. I thought that they would attract a lot of support, but that support is moving a lot faster than I would have thought.
Senator, it's my analysis since I've been off the mainstream media cable channels, there isn't one broadcaster anywhere that's willing to say Bernie can win this thing. And I believe you can. I'm a Bernie guy. I have been for a long time. But it seems like every interview you go into, what they want to do is try to get you to say something about Hillary Clinton. How hard is it for you as a candidate to cut through that? And when is the mainstream media, do you think you're getting the respect you deserve?
Well, here's the story, Ed, and I want to congratulate you, as I have before, and on the floor of the Senate. Trade and our disastrous trade policies, which have cost us thousands of factories and millions of jobs, is a huge issue, no matter what side you're on. And yet, the corporate media has virtually not discussed that huge issue. You did. Most people did not. Collapse of the American middle class needs discussion. Now, I think it is pretty clear to me that we are making many of the folks in the corporate media kind of nervous. What we are expecting to see is us to be marginalized. Oh, Bernie Sanders, you can't take him seriously. He believes we should take on the billionaire class and develop programs that work for working families and low-income people. What a dumb idea that is. Who would believe that? He doesn't have a super PAC. Hey, Ed, how are you going to run for office nowadays if you're not hustling money from billionaires and millionaires and you don't have a super PAC? You're not a serious candidate. But then they go out and they have to go to Oregon with me. We've got 28,000 people out there, 27,000 in Los Angeles, some of the largest turnouts in Iowa and New Hampshire. And then, so they got a problem, and that's the way the world is. When I talk about taking on the establishment, Ed, I'm not just talking about taking on Wall Street and corporate America, and I'm not just taking on the super PACs. Of course, we're taking on the corporate media. And I'll tell you something else that bothers me, and that is, in democracy, people can have different points of view. That's fine. That's great. But we have got to discuss the most important issues. Politics should not be a soap opera. It should not be a baseball game. It should be a debate about the most important issues facing the American people. Sadly, to a large degree, it is not.
And you want more debates, and you've told the DNC that, correct?
I want more debates, and I want more discussion. Look, Republicans, as you know, want to cut Social Security. Some of them may want to privatize Social Security. Fine. That's their view. You know what? Let's debate that issue. I think that is a stupid idea. I think we should be expanding Social Security. Some Republicans want unfettered free trade. They love unfettered free trade. I don't. You don't. Let's debate that issue. I want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next few years. Some Republicans want to eliminate the concept of the minimum wage. Let's debate that issue and other issues of relevance to the American people. Let's not get involved in gossip and political attacks.
Senator, do you find yourself having to defend yourself against this narrative, Bernie can't win? Are you running into that?
Yeah, sure we are. And I think, fortunately, what we have seen is a few national polls which have me beating every Republican candidate or most of the Republican candidates. And let me say this. I was at Minneapolis last week, as you may know, before the Democratic National Committee. And this was my message. My message is that in the last election in November 2014, Republicans didn't win, Democrats lost it, because the voter turnout was abysmal. And millions of young people, working people, people of color, have given up on the political process. If they want to win, not only the White House, but regain the Senate, gain control of the House, win governor's chairs all over this country, we need to revitalize politics in America. We need to get millions of people involved. I think, frankly, I am the best candidate to do that, because the message that we are talking about, taking on the billionaire class, having a very definitive program that represents working families, is the kinds of ideas that are resonating with American people and will increase voter turnout.
Senator, taking a look at as you move forward here, there seems to be this constant narrative that you have a problem with the Black Lives Matters movement. Yet the movement seems to be very undefined. It's almost as if there's some kind of whisper campaign out there nationally that, well, Bernie doesn't connect with black people. Your strategy there, I know that you've come forward the day after what happened in Seattle, but do you feel like you've made some headway on that, and do you think that you've turned it in the right direction and are changing some minds on that?
I think we are, Ed. And I think in some of the polls, I think our support among the African-American community and the Latino community is growing. And look, we're running against a candidate whose husband was a very popular president, especially in the African-American community. She ran in 2008, reached out to a lot of African-American leaders and the African-American community. Those are a lot of people. That's the simple truth. So we are starting pretty far behind. But, Ed, what I would tell you is, if you and I were having this conversation 4 months ago, and we were talking about Bernie Sanders winning in some polls or leading in some polls in New Hampshire, closing the gap in Iowa, we would not have believed that.
Yeah.
I believe the same thing will happen. I think we have a message for the African-American community in terms of economic efforts and in terms of criminal justice, which will resonate.
Senator, what about the potential agreement you're going to do with the DNC? Are you going to do a fundraising agreement with the DNC?
Well, I think, obviously, if I'm going to become the candidate, we will work with the Democratic National Committee to raise money. But I'm not going to, look, my approach is, most of the billionaires in this country are not going to become out here Bernie Sanders. Our effort will be what I've done for many years, Ed. We just sent out a letter a few weeks ago, a month ago, I think, for the Democratic Senate Committee, which is raising hundreds of thousands of dollars in small donations. That's how I think I can be helpful. Okay.
Finally, Joe Biden mentioned your name at a closed-door fundraiser. Do you take that as a compliment? How do you view the fact that someone of his political stature and experience mentions your name in your campaign, and yet he hasn't made a decision to jump in yet, and who knows if he is? Your reaction to that?
Well, Ed, I have known Joe Biden for many, many years. We served several years together in the Senate. Everybody who knows Joe respects him and likes him. If Joe does get into the race, what I promise him and promise everybody, I'm going to run an issue-oriented campaign. I think Joe and I, turns out, will have very different positions on different issues, and we'll talk about them. But, we'll see what happens. I don't know that Joe will run. He may run. He may not run. We will see what happens. But I appreciate the nice things that Joe said.
What is your reaction to Hillary Clinton's former assistant taking the fifth?
Well, we will see. We will see how that process plays out. I don't have much more to say than what we're seeing right now.
And finally, Senator, I know I said that before, but I'll say it again. What's the hot button issue in Iowa? What is connecting Bernie Sanders the most with people in Iowa that are going to have a decision to make? They're the first to cast the vote.
Well, and that's where I am right now. I think the issue is that people are sick and tired of seeing the middle class having to work longer hours for low wages when almost all of the new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. They understand the economy is rigged. They understand the rich get richer and everybody else gets poorer, and they want a candidate who's prepared to stand up to the people on top and say enough is enough. You guys are not going to have it all.
You will support the Iran nuclear deal?
Absolutely.
Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Bernie Sanders, great to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. All the best. We'll do it again. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Ed. Thank you very much. Take care.
You bet. Senator Bernie Sanders campaigning in Iowa, spending time with us this Friday on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.